January 1945. The Mariana Islands lie quiet under a fragile dawn. On the tarmac of Tinian, the massive silhouettes of B-29 Superfortresses cast long, cold shadows. Engines rumble to life, a deep mechanical growl that shakes the ground beneath the crew's boots. Smoke curls in the air, mingling with the salty scent of the sea and the crisp chill of early morning. Inside each aircraft, the men sit rigid in their seats. Pilots adjust their instruments. Gunners check ammunition belts. Bombardiers study maps illuminated by flickering lights. There is a shared silence, a tension born from knowing the thousands of miles ahead over enemy territory, the flak, the fighters, the unknown. Above, the sky begins to bleed orange and pink as the sun rises. Slowly, the B-29s roll forward, one by one, into the heat of the day. The ground trembles beneath the sheer weight of metal and ambition. Ahead lies Japan, cities glowing faintly in the distance, unaware of the storm approaching. The mission is clear: domination from the air, precision and terror measured in tons of steel and fire. From Tinian's runway to the heart of Tokyo, the Superfortresses are about to change the war and the world forever. The engines roar, the propellers spin, and the sky opens wide. By early 1944, the Pacific War had stretched across thousands of miles of ocean and island chains. The United States had turned the tide with victories at Midway and the Solomon Islands, but Japan still held vast territories, fortified islands, and cities largely untouched by Allied bombs. The war in the Pacific was no longer merely a struggle for land. It had become a war of attrition, logistics, and air supremacy. The capture of the Mariana Islands, Saipan, Tinian, and Guam was a turning point. These islands were distant yet strategically vital. From here, the United States could launch air raids directly against the Japanese home islands. But Japan's cities, industrial centres, and transportation networks remained beyond the effective range of conventional bombers operating from China or Pacific bases. The solution was a new kind of aircraft, one capable of long-range missions carrying heavy payloads and surviving in hostile skies. Enter the Boeing B-29 Superfortress. Conceived in 1939 and delayed by engineering challenges, the Superfortress represented a leap in aviation technology. Pressurized cabins allowed crews to operate comfortably at high altitudes. Remote-controlled gun turrets provided defensive firepower unprecedented in bombers. Its Wright R3350 engines offered both range and speed, though not without reliability issues that would haunt the early missions. The B-29 was more than a plane. It was a weapon of strategic dominance, designed to strike at the very heart of Japan while minimizing risk to its crews. The US Army Air Forces saw the B-29 as the key to a new strategy: strategic bombing from high altitude, bypassing the heavily fortified Japanese island perimeter. Planners in Washington and the newly formed Rod 91 Bomber Command in the Marianas believed that sustained raids could cripple Japan's war industry and morale, forcing surrender without a costly ground invasion. It was an audacious plan dependent on precision navigation, weather intelligence, and the courage of air crews flying over 1,500 miles of open ocean. Yet challenges loomed. Japanese air defences were formidable, though not yet concentrated over the home islands. Radar-directed fighters and anti-aircraft artillery could strike without warning. Weather over the Pacific could ground missions for days. And the B-29 itself was temperamental. Engines could overheat, pressurization could fail, and a single mechanical error could turn a routine mission into disaster. Despite these risks, the stage was set. From Tinian and Saipan, the US prepared to unleash a scale of air power Japan had never witnessed, thousands of tons of bombs, flown by crews who had trained for months, each mission a gamble with life itself. It was a strategy rooted in technology, ambition, and the belief that the skies would ultimately decide the fate of a nation. From this careful orchestration of strategy and engineering emerged the first missions over Japan, a precursor to the raids that would soon bring entire cities to the brink of destruction. By mid-1944, the US had fully realized the potential of the Marianas as an air launch platform. Tinian, with its flat terrain and long runways, became the central hub for B-29 operations. Runways were extended over miles of coral and compacted earth, capable of accommodating the Superfortress's massive wingspan and weight. Fuel depots, maintenance hangars, and command centres sprang up almost overnight, turning a remote island into a launching point for strategic air warfare. The WWII Bomber Command, commanded by General Curtis LeMay, meticulously organised the squadrons. Crews trained relentlessly, running simulated bombing runs over the Pacific, practicing formation, flying, gunnery drills, and night navigation. The B-29 crews were a mix of seasoned flyers and ambitious recruits, all acutely aware that a single mission could mean the difference between life and death. Precision and discipline were not ideals, they were survival. Japanese defences, though stretched thin across the Pacific, were far from negligible. Anti-aircraft batteries protected major cities, while fighter units patrolled key air corridors. Intelligence reports warned of new radar systems and the possibility of kamikaze tactics, though such strategies would intensify later. The Japanese home islands were largely unprepared for sustained high-altitude attacks, yet experience from earlier raids, like the Doolittle raid of 1942, showed the potential for even small bombing efforts to have an outsized psychological effect. The first missions were cautious, testing both aircraft and crew. Navigation across the vast Pacific required dead reckoning, celestial fixes, and precise radio coordination. Any error could leave crews hundreds of miles off course, vulnerable to mechanical failure or enemy interception. Yet even in these early flights, the B-29 proved its worth. Heavy bomb loads delivered with unprecedented range and accuracy, while crews maintained altitude above most Japanese defences. As the months passed, planning shifted from experimental sorties to full-scale bombing raids. Detailed maps identified industrial zones, transportation hubs, and urban centres. Target selection balanced military objectives with the goal of crippling Japan's capacity to wage war. Weather forecasting became an essential part of the strategy. Typhoons and high winds could ground entire missions or scatter formations mid-flight. Each raid demanded meticulous coordination, sometimes involving over 100 aircraft flying in formation, each assigned precise bombing altitudes and timing to maximize destruction. By late 1944, the B-29 had become the centerpiece of a new era in air warfare. From their bases in the Marianas, American crews were ready to deliver destruction on a scale Japan had never seen. The combination of technological innovation, strategic planning, and relentless training set the stage for raids that would alter the course of the war. The tension was palpable. Crews knew that every sortie carried both immense power and immense risk, and soon the superfortresses would carry that power across the skies to the very heart of Japan, where fire and steel awaited. Inside the B-29, the human experience was a study in tension and endurance. Crews spent up to 16 hours in the air, confined in pressurized cabins that hummed with the constant vibration of engines. Pilots guided massive aircraft across thousands of miles of ocean, relying on dead reckoning and rudimentary radar, while gunners scanned for enemy fighters and flak bursts. Bombardiers bore the heaviest psychological load, responsible for targeting entire neighborhoods, knowing the devastation their actions would bring. Despite the stoicism demanded by military discipline, fear was never absent. Letters home spoke of long nights filled with anxiety, the claustrophobia of the cabin, and the haunting awareness that one mistake could mean death. Yet camaraderie grew in the air. Crew members learned to trust instinctively, sharing silent glances across the cockpit, supporting each other through turbulence, enemy fire, and the ever-present hum of machinery that was both lifeline and threat. At the command level, the campaign was a test of vision and adaptability. General Curtis LeMay, known for his ruthlessness and meticulous planning, transformed the WWII Bomber Command into a precision instrument of war. He challenged conventional doctrines, shifting from high-altitude daylight bombing, which often yielded low accuracy due to jet stream winds, to nighttime firebombing to maximize destructive effect. Decisions were calculated, yet each carried moral and strategic weight. Orders dictated entire fleets of aircraft, each maneuvering in tight formation, while intelligence officers assessed Japanese defenses and weather conditions. Leadership extended beyond strategy. It meant maintaining morale among aircrews who witnessed unprecedented destruction firsthand, balancing the demands of victory with the human cost of the raids. Tactically, the B-29 represented a revolution in aerial warfare. Its range allowed attacks on previously unreachable targets, Formation flying maximized defensive firepower, while careful route planning sought to minimize exposure to Japanese fighters. Missions often involved a staggered release of bombs to achieve city-wide firestorms, exploiting wind patterns and urban density. Precision was measured in hundreds of feet, a margin that could separate industrial zones from civilian homes. Tactical innovation extended to logistics. Fuel calculations were critical, and the timing of takeoffs and rendezvous points was orchestrated down to the minute. Each sortie was a dance between risk and opportunity, demanding exacting coordination from every aircrew member and ground staff supporting the mission. Together, these angles, human endurance, commanding leadership, and tactical innovation formed the backbone of the B-29 campaign. They highlight not only the power of technology but the complexity of warfare itself, where human decision, skill, and bravery intersected with machinery and strategy to shape the skies over Japan. The B-29 was a marvel of engineering, its innovations reshaping the conduct of aerial warfare. Pressurized cabins allowed crews to operate at altitudes above 30,000 feet, reducing exposure to anti-aircraft fire while enabling longer-range missions. Remote-controlled gun turrets, linked to sighting stations, provided overlapping defensive coverage, a concept unheard of in earlier bombers. Each aircraft carried up to 20,000 pounds of bombs, an unprecedented payload that could level entire industrial districts. Yet the technology was not flawless. The R3350 engines, while powerful, were prone to overheating, sometimes igniting mid-flight. Electrical systems were complex, often failing under combat conditions. The success of each mission depended on the seamless integration of these systems and the skill of crews to adapt when machinery faltered. In many ways, the B-29 was as much a test of human ingenuity as it was of American industrial might. From the Japanese perspective, the raids represented a new and terrifying threat. Cities that had never seen large-scale air attacks were suddenly vulnerable. Anti-aircraft batteries scrambled to adapt, but the altitude, speed, and formation tactics of the Superfortress often rendered defences ineffective. Fighter units, even when launched, faced overwhelming odds against the heavily armed bombers. Each raid became more refined, incorporating lessons learned from prior missions. Fuel reserves, bomb loads, formation flying, and timing were adjusted to maximize efficiency. The Superfortresses, once experimental, now flew as extensions of a meticulous plan. By April 1945, raids had escalated further. Night after night, B-29 struck city after city. Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, Kobe, delivering not only bombs but a psychological shock to the population. Japanese leadership, already aware of the island nation's dwindling resources, faced a new kind of war, one that attacked the very fabric of daily life, where civilians and infrastructure alike were caught in the crossfire of strategic ambition. The first wave of raids had proven the B-29's devastating potential. Yet this was only the beginning. The campaign's scope would soon grow, pushing technology, strategy, and human endurance to their limits. By mid-1945, the scale of the bombing campaign had reached unprecedented levels. 29 formations numbered over 1,000 aircraft on some missions, flying in coordinated waves from the Marianas toward the heart of Japan. Each mission required precise timing, rendezvous over the ocean, altitude adjustments, and staggered bomb releases designed to maximize firestorms across dense urban landscapes. The orchestration was immense, a ballet of steel, strategy, and sheer human determination. The Japanese cities bore the brunt. Tokyo, already scarred from previous raids, became a labyrinth of smoke and flame. Osaka, Nagoya, and Kobe followed, each city experiencing destruction on a scale unimaginable just months before. Firestorms consumed homes and factories alike. Streets were unrecognizable, reduced to molten rubble. Hospitals overflowed, water supplies failed, and countless civilians were trapped in their burning neighborhoods. Ground reports spoke of entire districts engulfed within minutes, the air thick with smoke and ash, and the distant thunder of explosions echoing across the cityscape. Japanese air defences attempted to respond. Fighters scrambled to intercept the high-flying superfortresses, but the combination of altitude, formation tactics, and defensive gun coverage rendered most attacks ineffective. Anti-aircraft artillery sent flak spiralling skyward, often too late or inaccurately aimed to prevent widespread damage. Intelligence reports later confirmed that these defences, while courageous, were no match for the technological and numerical superiority of the American formations. Inside the B-29s, crews faced their own perils. Engine failures, navigation errors, and mechanical malfunctions were constant threats. The long flights exhausted airmen, both physically and mentally. Gunners remained vigilant, scanning for enemy aircraft or unexpected flak bursts. Bombardiers calculated releases with precision, knowing each decision shaped the destruction below. Despite the detachment imposed by altitude, the human cost was apparent to all on board. The orange glow of firestorms reflected in cockpit windows, a silent reminder of lives irrevocably altered. The raid's effects rippled beyond immediate destruction. Industrial output slowed drastically, transportation networks collapsed, and Japanese morale fractured under the relentless pressure. Factories crucial to aircraft, shipbuilding and ammunition production were obliterated. Civilians endured unimaginable hardship, while leadership in Tokyo faced a war increasingly beyond control. The raids were no longer just military operations. They were a demonstration of air power's capacity to redefine the very landscape of conflict. By August 1945, the cumulative effect of these missions had left Japan vulnerable on multiple fronts. The superfortresses, flying thousands of miles, delivering tons of bombs, had reshaped the war's trajectory. Cities smouldered, defences were depleted, and both military and civilian populations faced a stark new reality.